Jane Austen.
Kia ora, welcome to the Amateur Austenite. I'm Frances Duncan, author, Austenite, life coach. My co-host, the fantastic big boxer, Rachel Pilwa, book buyer, Austenite, and all-round nerd.
Hi.
Today we're discussing the second 1996 Emma. This is the movie version starring Gwyneth Paltrow. And Rachel already has her thumb down.
This was the longest film I've ever sat through.
It did feel long. It is 2 hours. The other is an hour and a half.
This is the longest film in the world. Is this the Zack Snyder cut? Every scene is dragged out. I'm sorry to everybody who worked on this film, but I really don't like this version. I fell asleep twice while watching this. I think I got about 40 minutes in. I fell asleep. When I tried to rewatch it the next day from where I'd fallen asleep, I fell asleep again about another 20 minutes later. I feel that says so much.
And this coming from Rachel, who loves Jane Austen, is saying a lot.
Yeah. Every scene was quite dragged out. Even the scenes, like most adaptations would make a very short moment of dialogue, they would add in so much little filler. But then every scene was so quiet. Most period drama, they have some sort of classical music playing during dramatic scenes, or just if someone's walking around the countryside. There's almost zero soundtrack.
I did not notice.
Yeah, no, if you go back, you have maybe a few moments of very small, quiet classical music, but otherwise, if they're in nature, you're mostly listening to the birds. If they're at a party, then there's obviously music playing and singing, but even that sounds muted. I think that's part of why it felt longer, is there was just this lack of ambiance. It just made any moment where there wasn't dialogue just feel even longer.
The cast was really good. Toni Collette, who, when this came out, was only known for Muriel's Wedding, and I remember going, what the hell is she doing in a Jane Austen? But she was so good, and she did these beautiful little hand movements like she was a cat, like cleaning herself.
Toni
Collette's Harriet. And she is actually prettier.
I think that's up for debate. I don't think I can be unbiased about it, because I like Toni Collette's quality as a person more than I like Gwyneth Paltrow. So I think internally, definitely beautiful. But in this version, I think Gwyneth Paltrow's Emma is more beautiful than Toni Collette.
I think the way that Toni Collette is portrayed in this, particularly in the first scene, when you see her innocence and her simplicity, she comes across as much prettier than Gwyneth Paltrow, even though Gwyneth Paltrow always stunning. But something about Toni Collette, I don't know. I thought she was a weird choice at the time, but rewatching it, I'm like, isn't she lovely? There are several people in this who've been in other things. The actress who plays Miss Fairfax is Lady Featherington.
In Bridgerton, yeah.
So interesting to go from so elegant to being almost trashy. Mrs. Weston played Cassandra in Miss Austen Regrets. Mrs. Bates was Mrs. Austen in Miss Austen Regrets, and is Emma and Sophie Thompson's mother. And Sophie Thompson played Miss Bates, and she was also Mary Musgrove in Persuasion.
I didn't know any of that. That's so cool. I feel like I owe the actor who played Mr. Knightley, Jeremy Northam, I owe him an apology. Because I probably have only watched this movie once back in the 2000s. I have always thought it was Eric Bana who acted in this film. A completely different actor who looks slightly similar to him. Never heard of Jeremy Northam before, and I apologize to him for that.
I like that the title of Emma is in Jane Austen's handwriting.
Yeah.
Again, they did pairing what's the start with the end, the painted globe, with Emma introducing places and people, and then at the end it's got the couples on the painted globe.
My first note that I made about this film was, what the hell is up with the rapidly spinning globe? I don't understand. And then having like the UK, which is like the size of the whole planet. And then I understood that they show the UK and they show Highbury because that is Emma's whole world.
Oh.
That is the allegory there. They are showing that this globe only has Emma's world in it.
I thought it was very funny that they put up their umbrellas to hide from Miss Bates, parasols. And there were some great lines. Mr. Woodhouse saying, "Good night, Miss Taylor," and Emma saying, "Good night, Mrs. Weston." Emma and Mr. Knightley flirting, and her saying to him, "Your entire personality is a riddle, Mr. Knightley. I thought you were overqualified," to provide them a riddle for the book. About Mrs. Elton, is it possible Mr. Elton met her while doing charity work at a mental infirmary?
That is a great line.
When Harriet is getting rid of her things about Mr. Elton, "Goodbye, Mr. Elton. Hello, Mr. Churchill." Mostly Emma has the good lines. Mr. Knightley, about being reluctant to dance, I'd rather fetch that stick. And Emma saying, I'll try to remember to bring it to the ball. Piers de resistance. Emma saying, Frank just told me the most fascinating thing. He's heard of Mrs. Elton and still wants to meet her. Oh!
My favourite moment in this film is when they're at the Coles party and they see that the Eltons are coming in.
When everybody moves!
And they turn around and walk away from the door so that when the Eltons come in, they're just like, where did everybody go? Yes, that is exactly the reaction that people will have to the Eltons. They're so detestable to be around that everyone literally leaves the room.
Quite early on when we meet Harriet, she talks about believing that people can only love once when she's talking about the Westerns. She's like, but I'm glad I was wrong. It's really funny because she supposedly falls in love 3 times. It also reminds us of Marianne and that silliness. Oh no, you only love once.
I kind of liked that as a dialogue though, kind of being like, oh, you're so fortunate to have fallen in love twice. Like I thought it was a really sweet way to think of the Westerns love story. He did have a great love with his wife and she died and now he's fortunate enough to find another one, and I was like, oh, that's so sweet.
It felt small. It felt cramped and enclosed. Lots of decorations, patterned wallpaper.
It was busy.
Paintings. And even when they were outside, you didn't really have a lot of space. It tended to be small pathways, and it felt like you almost couldn't breathe. But was that intentional to feel like Emma's world is very small?
That too. I also found that there were a lot of scenes, especially at the beginning, where it takes place, there's a lot of shadow. Like when they're saying goodnight that you mentioned before on the doorstep, and they're pretty much in complete darkness. You can't see their faces. And then when her and Mr. Knightley are walking through forest and it's a really dark shaded space, what is the reasoning for that? And I think that probably does add to that feeling of like tightness and closeness, is that it was very dark, it was very cluttered. By the time you're getting towards the latter half of the film, I do feel like the space has brightened up a bit. There is one moment, I think it is fairly early on though, where it's Mr. Knightley and Emma outside talking, and it does have this open shot of the two of them, and it's this big open space, kind of like to see how much land he has. And then the camera, like, dynamic swoops in to come in a close-up of their faces with Donwell in the background. And Mr. Knightley just going, I don't want to leave home. It's cozy. Showing giant house after having seen giant, amount of land. Like, it's a comedic line of dialogue to show this is cozy for him, is this giant house.
We do have the cute thing of them doing archery together. He refers to Robert Martin as a tenant and a good friend. Mm-hmm. Seems like they're trying to make Mr. Martin slow. And he's got a regional accent. He's a bit stupid, though.
We see Robert Martin once before that line of dialogue about him being a good friend to Mr. Knightley. And Mr. Knightley also saying immediately after that, he's one of the most sensible people in my acquaintance. We don't see that side of him at all throughout the film. Normally, that is how we see Mr. Martin. He is someone of sense. He waits until he has enough money to propose to Harriet. But they make a point of when him and Harriet meet while Harry and Emma are walking through the woods. And Harriet says, oh, have you read this book? And he's like, oh, no, I forgot about it. And he seems a lot more bumbling. That's part of how Emma convinces Harriet not to marry him. You know, Harriet's like, oh, but he's so lovely and caring enough to read the book you recommended.
That was a bad move, Emma.
Yeah, I was like, oof, girl. They say he's the sensible character, but he doesn't feel like the kind of guy who would be friends with Mr. Knightley in this adaptation. And he doesn't seem like the sensible kind of guy either. And it isn't until the scene where him and Harriet are in the rain and he tells her to go a different direction outside the shop, where he's like, oh, I read that book you recommended. Bro, this is not the time. But he's made an effort since Harriet rejected him, as if this might be one of the reasons she's rejected me is because I've not been sensible enough or caring enough. And he's made an effort to change.
I like the way that they tell that scene, that Harriet's telling it to Emma and she's like, and then so-and-so said, and you're seeing the whole scene, but then the characters speak out of their own mouths. But Harriet says, and then I did this, and then the next person it was really cute. When Emma and Mr. Knightley are fighting during the archery, I'm sure that was an intentional choice, that they're doing a sort of fighting thing while doing the archery. And Emma just gets progressively worse.
Yeah.
And then they go and sit and have tea. There's lots of outdoor stuff, but it's very clearly we've had servants set everything up.
Mm-hmm.
And he is sulking at the tea table, which is hilarious.
I didn't find their chemistry overly strong as, like, a couple, but I felt like during the fight scenes, their arguments, that's when I really felt like, oh yeah, they know each other. He did such a good job of portraying that lecturing teacher. They do actually emphasize multiple times in this, like, very early on, I think it's when they're talking about Isabella having left, and they mention being like, oh, well, we are practically brother and sister. And they reinforce that. And then later on at the ball, when they're like, oh, well, you know, who are you going to dance with? She's like, you, if you'll have me. We're not so much brother and sister for it to be inappropriate. And he's like, indeed, we are not. I was just like, you've spent this whole time reminding us that you are, and now all of a sudden you're switching up. Like, it just annoyed me. Sorry.
They include the charity visit, which isn't often included in adaptations, and it's made a really funny scene at Harriet's expense. But Emma gets Harriet to tell Mr. Elton all the things as if she had done it, not Emma herself.
I feel like that was a pretty good use of showing Emma as an unreliable narrator. During the scene, Emma's helping out, she's super graceful, and Harriet's just standing to the side, and we don't really see much of Harriet during it. But then when Harriet is having to think about it and recollecting it, she's obviously just thinking about all of her faults and stuff and messing up constantly. In Harriet's mind, that whole trip, she was a disaster. But in Emma's mind, everything was perfect. It's probably not going that deep, but I felt like it was like a kind of callback of how the two of them see themselves, of like Emma being graceful and Harriet being clumsy. But I found that scene where they're talking to Mr. Elton about it and they're walking, and then Emma fakes having a shoelace untied so they can go and talk, just the two of them. And then Emma starts harassing this small child.
Yeah, to give her a reason to walk slower. And she's basically holding the kid. The kid's trying to get away.
I have to go and get stuff from my mother. Leave me alone, lady. And she's clawing at his arm. And I'm just like, leave the boy alone.
Yeah, because she thinks that he's going to propose to Harriet and he doesn't. At Christmas, he's annoying Emma, asking if she's warm, or she keeps trying to hear about Frank. I found that quite amusing, that it'd be like, go in, go back, go in, go back. And then he pushes his butt between her and Mr. Knightley. And Mr. Knightley is trying not to laugh.
In this adaptation, Mr. Elton is played by the phenomenal Alan Cummings. And I don't think I've ever seen Alan Cummings in something that I haven't enjoyed. He's an amazing actor and voice actor. A lot of people my age mostly know him as Flute from Spy Kids. He's been in so many things. I think this is the only thing that I felt he was miscast in. Maybe it's because I'm biased and I like him as a person that I was struggling to dislike him. I mean, he is still dislikable. He is a bit more of a smarmy.
He is creepy when he tries to propose.
Yeah. Like, there's points where he's saying, like, oh, incredible, and like, looking at her neck, like, whispering over her neck. And so he did still give me the ick, which I guess is the whole point. But I don't know. I think he would have played a better Mr. Martin, actually. But that, again, might be biased because I don't want to dislike him or his characters. The carriage scene, again, they have that bit of moving about the carriage, her trying to get away, and then him following, and then like, cutting back and forth. But in that carriage scene, that carriage is rocking so hard, I started feeling nauseous while watching it.
It was so fake. They're very clearly on something that is shaking the carriage from side to side.
But it's full on like tilting like a seesaw, but like quicker. And yeah, but like I was watching it and I was like, oh God, I actually need to look away because the movement of it was just making me feel so sick.
Mrs. Elton was really good. I kind of love that she talks over Mr. Elton.
Oh yeah, that was quite well done.
And she used to have 2 carriages and a bigger house. And she always goes on about what her friends say about her.
Mm-hmm. Like Emma's like, oh, we've heard of your great talent for music. It's like, well, I would not say I'm great, but my friends tell me I'm great. As soon as Mrs. Elton comes in, Mr. Elton barely gets another line.
Yeah, because she just talks over the top of him anytime he opens his mouth. I love it.
Craziest thing though about Mrs. Elton. So at the very beginning I was like, oh, this narration is interesting. And then I was thinking, oh, so it's definitely someone talking about Emma. She's never had to worry about anything. And I was thinking, is this Mrs. Weston? And the narration comes in every so often, like after the proposal scene, the camera pans up past a tree and it feels like the end of the film. And then the narration comes back. You know, there was one person who Emma had to tell and it wasn't going to be very well, which is obviously Harriet. Yeah, I like that we see that moment But I was still then just kind of like, well, who is this narrator? And it's not until the very end where we see the wedding and we hear this narration again. And then Mrs. Elton turns around and speaks directly to the camera. And I went, what the fuck? Like, I genuinely said it out loud. She narrated the entire thing. What? That was a wild choice. Why her? And it's like, because the narrator talks kind of nicely about Emma at the beginning. But yeah, and at the end, and it's talking about the wedding. And it's like, oh, some said the wedding was plain. And then she turns around and was like, there was far too little silk. I was just like, of all the people to narrate a story about Emma, it's the person who dislikes her the most.
That's really funny. That's quite a good choice, actually.
I was shocked. It was like the wildest plot twist.
Emma meets Frank when she's in a river.
Oh my God, Ewan McGregor is Frank? He had long hair. I didn't like it.
No, it's a terrible wig.
No, but I've never seen him with long hair and I don't like that on him. But yes, they meet in the river.
It just seems really weird. But his behaviour at the picnic is different. It seems like he's trying to get Mrs. Elton to leave Jane alone. Not that he and Emma are flirting just for flirting's sake. He's trying to draw the attention away. And Emma's jab at Miss Bates seems to be in response to the Eltons being rude to her. It's like they've just explained everybody's behaviour rather than them being dicks.
Yeah.
And when Mr. Knightley tells off Emma, it seems like he wants to cry.
He's kind of mad, and then he grabs her arm and yanks her around to face him and says, like, it was very badly done, Emma, and he yells at her and then immediately goes into this very gentle, almost apologetic while he's lecturing her. Like, he's not mad, he's disappointed.
Oh, it's always that, isn't it?
Yeah. He does seem like he wants to cry. He is so upset. I mean, I guess it's because he feels like he's lost Emma to Frank. When she says that, and he's like, his influence over you. And so he is like mourning the loss of the woman he loves in that moment. But the way this film cut together Frank and Jane made it so obvious to the audience that they were already engaged from the beginning. Because normally that might be a little bit of a plot twist maybe later on. Oh my God, they were actually engaged this whole time. But in this version, any time you have Frank and Jane in the same room, or Frank is mentioned when Jane is around, it cuts to her. When they're at the party, Emma's singing and he stands up to sing with her. As soon as he starts singing about a love, it cuts to Jane's face. And then it's her reaction to it. When Emma goes to visit the Bates and Jane is there, and Frank gets brought up in conversation, and it immediately cuts to Jane. Why are we cutting to Jane all the time, anytime Frank is mentioned? Like, and you obviously see her, like, interest peak at dinner. You know, Frank's coming and he's got a house and he's setting up a house in Highbury. Cut to Jane. And I'm just like, leave some mystery, guys. Don't make it so obvious.
Emma tells Mrs. Weston that she's in love with Mr. Knightley, because normally she doesn't tell anyone. And also she seems to figure it out earlier, before Harriet says that she's into Mr. Knightley.
Yeah, she definitely starts feeling it when Mrs. Weston is like, oh, Mr. Knightley's in love with Jane. And at first she thinks it's because I don't like Jane. And then it very quickly becomes apparent, no, it's because I like Mr. Knightley. So by the point that Harriet tells her, she's already like, I'm in love with him.
Oh, and her rants about Harriet are so funny. Her parents could be pirates!
Yeah, when she was talking to Mrs. Weston about her feelings for Mr. Knightley, it felt so juvenile, Emma's reactions, because she's saying like, oh, he's gone to London and what if he's getting advice? I was like, oh, I love John. Oh, I hate John. And I was just like, what is this? Mrs. Weston in these moments, when Emma is telling her inner thoughts, in the book it's an inner monologue a lot of the time. And so Mrs. Weston basically becomes the audience's vehicle for the inner monologue, where Emma can't tell us, she can't talk to camera directly, so she talks to Mrs. Weston so we can still hear what's going on inside her head. Because she does it at another point when she is thinking about, oh, I've made a mess with Harriet. Mr. Elton was actually in love with me. And it's like talking to Mrs. Weston about it. Same kind of thing. We're hearing that internal monologue through her.
I think they tried to really make it funny without just relying on Austen. They tried to put some funny sentences and funny situations in there. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it came off as kind of cheesy. And there were some really beautiful transitions of oh, I'll say, you'll say such and such when such and such happens, and then it goes straight into that scene. And there's another one with someone, I think they touch hands or they move hands, and then it goes into the scene of them doing the same. And they did some lovely movie stuff.
I didn't find most of what they were trying to make funny, with the exception of Emma waiting for the Coles' letter.
Oh, her popping out from that chair.
Yeah.
So funny.
Emma doesn't know the Coles are having a party until Miss Bates mentions it. And then Emma is just like, hang on, they're having a party and I haven't been invited. And she's like talking to her dad, why wouldn't they have invited us? They must know I'd have to refuse them. And then it shows her sitting down and her father says, oh, have the letters arrived yet? And she goes, oh no, I haven't seen anything. And then he walks away and then she pulls the letters out from behind her so she can see if there's an invitation. And then, yeah, her popping out from the chair, why haven't they written? And then saying, oh, well, I cannot, cuts to the Coles, being like, I cannot tell you how delighted I am to be invited.
That's the transitions that they're doing. And it works to keep a flow.
But I feel like they did that a lot. It happens multiple times throughout the movie where she says something and then it cuts to that moment, like halfway through the dialogue to continue. Using it once or twice is funny, but I think if you overuse it, it loses effect.
Good point.
Like Mr. Knightley's proposal, I think might be the sweetest version of the proposal. I feel like in the 96 Beckinsale, it is super intense. And again, it's probably because Mark Strong's Knightley is a much more serious version. But then compare Johnny Flynn's Knightley's proposal, where that proposal scene with the whole nosebleed and stuff kind of ends up becoming comedic. This was just a much more sweeter, quieter, more heartfelt moment between the two of them, of him bearing his feelings. He does again mention about holding her when she was a baby, which I always hate, but I don't know, I kind of like that. Although then, I have to rag on Gwyneth a bit, but then the immediate of like, I can't marry you because of my father, and she turns away, and she does this throughout the film, especially during the scene after Box Hill where she's getting told off, and she does this like crying face where it looks like she's crying, but she's not. She's just fake crying, and it's not really believable. And she does it again after the proposal scene of like, oh, I can't marry you with my father. Let it be my home too. And she immediately brightens up and like turns around to like rush into his arms. It just felt like she was being manipulative. Her immediate realization of, oh my God, I can't marry you, it feels genuine. And she turns away and like walks off a little bit. But to me, it just felt like she was trying to manipulate him into saying, yeah, I'll come and live with your dad. Like instead of it just being a genuine offering. In the book, is it Frank or Emma who starts the rumor about Jane and Mr. Dixon?
It's Emma, but that is a difference that in this one, Frank suggested, which makes him a bigger ass.
I mean, I can never really back Frank, but in this, he was even worse because he is the one at every turn to bring up Mr. Dixon and Jane. He starts that rumor. Anytime it's mentioned, he's the first person to mention it. And I was just like, you bastard.
He's obviously trying to hide what's going on for him, but yeah, it does not look good.
The next day after the first party where he meets Emma and he has to go away again, and he goes to see Emma and he's talking about, like, by the time I've been here, surely you've noticed that I've had feelings for someone. And obviously she thinks that he's telling her that he has feelings for her, but he's actually talking about Jane. But I was like, bro, you've barely been here. It's the very next scene, this time in between that we know there is, but in terms of the film, it seems like the very next day. And it's like, you spent all of the day before spreading rumors that Jane was with Mr. Dixon, but now you're coming to Emma to tell Emma that you're in love with Jane? What?
Yeah, so a bit quick on that one.
Yeah.
We didn't see enough of them develop their relationship for him to feel comfortable to be honest with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was weird how some scenes did just feel so dragged out. When Harriet is originally telling Emma about the Martins and she's catching butterflies, which I thought was a weird moment. But that scene goes like a couple of minutes at least. And then later on when Harriet's lamenting about Mr. Elton and she's crying, and then they go visit puppies for some reason.
Well, Mr. Elton had brown eyes.
Mr. Elton had brown eyes. And then the scene where she's like burning the memories of him. Every scene of that just felt really dragged out. So then it felt really weird to then have Frank's been here like all of 10 minutes and now he's leaving, but he's already telling Emma that he loves Jane. It just felt weirdly quick and weirdly cut. I thought it was interesting that they kept the Romany scene in this one as well, but they had Emma there this time. Instead of it being Harriet and a friend. But they still go mostly for Harriet. And I don't know if it's because she falls down first. And then Frank obviously comes to, like, save them. But Emma imagining the whole romance of Frank saving Harriet is different if she's there. I think in Emma's mind it just becomes this big, like, oh my God, he saved her and then he carried her. But if Emma's there and she can see exactly what it's like, I guess she could still make that misunderstanding. But no, it doesn't seem like this such heroic move. Because surely then he's also saved you, Emma, even if you weren't the one on the ground. But there's a scene that it's Emma and Mrs. Weston and Mr. Knightley, and they're talking about whether he is in love with Jane. And he's sitting there like he's lounging. He's got one leg out, he's got one leg tucked up, he's leaning back with his arms out. And I'm just like, this is not how a gentleman would sit, even in company he's comfortable with.
No, I noticed quite early on that Gwyneth Paltrow is sitting rigid, straight, so uncomfortable, and it was so noticeable at the start. And I'm not sure if I just got used to it.
When you see her sitting there and she's sitting all straight, prim and proper, and him just being super, like, casual. If it was just Emma, I still don't think he would do it. But having Mrs. Weston there as well, Mr. Knightley doesn't always have to be such, like, a strict character, but he is a character of, like, principle and, like, the principle of being, like, a gentleman and being proper. And this Mr. Knightley just didn't do that for me because of his smaller mannerisms like that. There were things I liked about this movie, but overall, the last thing I wrote in my notes, in all caps, was, thank God that's over. And you know what? I don't think I'll be rewatching this film for quite some time.
And that is our discussion of the 1996 Emma movie with Gwyneth Paltrow. I've been Frances Duncan. This has been Rachel Pilwer.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. We wish you happy watching.